The Twins are officially off the market, and the same people who owned the team before own it now. We will examine what the club will do now that the Pohlads are staying, but adding limited partners to the Big Happy Twins ownership tent. You will get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, analysis, grieving, whatever you got. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. Don't forget, hit like and subscribe really hard where applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer who owned some non-voting stock in the Boston Celtics at one time, but it was a gimmick and Larry Bird took it from me. I'm also a BBWA member and a Hall of Fame voter. Across the Great Plains of cyberspace is Brandon Warne, who probably feels fully vested in the Twins as a fan and a writer, and even contributes to the TV broadcasts. But Brandon don't own squat. You can find his work at Access Twins newsletter, and you can find mine someday, again, maybe at Zone Coverage. On this podcast, 10 months or so after putting the team on the market, the Pohlad family announced Wednesday that the Twins were no longer for sale. They're going to continue owning them, and they have taken on two investment groups. We don't have names yet, but we should soon. Maybe someone will break that news, but they're getting vetted and all that stuff by Major League Baseball, so we'll see. The debt will be paid down, Joe Poe says, but that doesn't mean the payroll will rise, or that Pablo, Lopez, and Joe Ryan will stay, or that anything of the kind will happen in the coming months. So there. Before we dive headfirst into the shallow end, we want to make sure, first of all, that you know that today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Brandon, the Twins aren't for sale anymore. It's not how we thought it would end, although some people are saying, I knew it all along that they were going to pull them off the market, and that was certainly one of the scenarios that was speculated upon from the time that this happened, and it appeared that the sale, when the sale didn't happen in the first 48 hours, I think people started to feel like, they're probably going to just pull it off the market. Joe Pohlad, with his wonderful hair, says that this is the best possible result of the process. I find that amusing and terrifying that he said that.
A little insulting.
And maybe a little insulting. So your first, you feel more about this than I do, being a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities area and Twins fan. Is he full of crap? What is your verdict on the first salvo here that the Twins are going to stay with the Pohlads and they're taking on investors instead?
Yeah, my phone has been buzzing all morning, afternoon long with people just asking me, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I kind of came up with the idea that, like, for as bad as this season got, the one thing you could hang your hat on was that on the horizon, there was new ownership coming. We never knew much more than that. Rob Manfred did the whole Michael Scott, I'll just start a sentence and don't know where it's going to finish until I'm done. And hopefully I get somewhere in there at the All-Star break saying sales closer to the finish line than it is something or else. Whatever. It ended up being a whole bunch of nonsense fluff by the mouthpiece for the owners at large. But to see or think that you see a sale on the horizon as the only silver lining, and then to have that rug pulled out from under you as a fan, like, you imagine how much worse could it get? I feel like thinking, oh yeah, the ownership change will give you a dead cat bounce. Now that dead cat just hits splat and is right in the middle of the street. I can't imagine anything good coming from this. Now, with that said, if the investment groups, or when the investment groups pump in some cash, get you back to maybe even, I still don't have any faith that they're going to do anything short of gutting this team further yet. But that's just the pessimist in me. And I hope that it's just the pessimist in me beaten down by 30 years of watching this team, 75% of this ownership group's reign of terror I've been living. So I'm hopeful, but pessimistic at the same time.
The idea here is that, and we've touched upon it, that the investment groups, and Joe Pohlad said there are two. One is local. The other is an East Coast family, which just has all kinds of connotations that are they're impolite. Let's just say, but that they don't have any major. Who knows what words mean anymore? But these groups don't have any ties to owning sports teams. So it's not. They're bringing in some people for money's sake. I would guess it's an investment for them in terms of, we'll give the Twins a certain amount of money for shares in the team. We're not. It's not that they're non-voting, but they don't have a great amount of influence over what decisions the Pohlads will continue to make in running the team. They're not on a track like Ishbia is with the White Sox to someday buy out Jerry Reinsdorf, at least at this time. But it is a way for the Pohlads to pay down their debt and I guess get back to square one from things like, for example, the 2020 season where they had a 60-game schedule and no fans. And I guess that's, I don't know. I always, whenever the owners and individual owners talk finances, I always feel like, I think with good reason, that we are being told like half the story, or certainly not everything. Yeah. And there's a lot of double talk going on. You mentioned Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, said that a transaction would take place soon. I have information that you don't, Manfred said, and that the transaction will take place, and whatever price the Twins are going to get is, in line with what has happened before. Now, he made it seem like he was talking about a new owner, but the way he worded it, he can now say, well, I didn't say there was going to be a new owner. I was talking about investors. This is unfolded just the way I thought it would. I can't wait for him to say that I know that's coming. Yeah. There's so much double talk going on, and I feel like they don't have fans' best interest at heart. That's not an earth-shattering analysis or new as far as sports ownership goes. I'm just, I guess that the whole, it was too good to be true that there were new owners. These are the same owners as before. I'm worried just in the short term that this means they're going to deal Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan. So I'm not optimistic. And at the same time, I don't want to be reflexively pessimistic, but I also don't feel like, it's like, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 10 times. I don't want to be taken in by whatever this plan is of theirs. Because, then I'm the sap, and I don't want to be the sap. I want the Twins to try and win a World Series again. And it doesn't seem like that's what we're getting.
Feels too tricky that if they wanted to do like a measure of good faith, because Lord knows they need all the PR they can get, wouldn't like the biggest one would be signing Joe Ryan, and that doesn't make baseball sense. He's under club control into his early 30s. And so, not that I think they would want to make good. I'm just saying, even if they decided that they wanted to do something that showed, listen, we're not abandoning this team, I don't even know where you'd start. And it's hard not to be just absolutely despondent about the status quo. Like, if ownership uncertainty leads to not spending, what does ownership certainty change? Like, it's I don't know if there's any end in sight that Twins fans can look forward to. I don't know that it exists. And I want to, I'm generally trying to at least say how something could work out. It gets construed as, oh, I'm overly positive at times or whatever. But I'm trying to envision a scenario where this looks like the arrow is pointing up in any way, and I'm not sure I see one.
Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about our initial thoughts on the impending investment of the Twins. It still has to be approved by Major League Baseball, so it's not official yet. It hasn't happened yet, but we'll talk about that and more about what's next with the Minnesota Twins after these commercial messages.
Well, let's make sure to give some love to our friends at OpenPhone. If you are running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, burst pipe. We had a dishwasher issue here at our place. And if the first person you call doesn't answer, the plumber, whoever you're calling, a repairman, did you call again? No, you moved on to the next one, of course. That's why having a reliable business line is so important and why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Now, if you're someone like my wife who has her own business, it's very important to keep business separate from personal. OpenPhone can solve that for you right away. Everyone on your team can share one number. My wife is just her on her own, but it allows her to separate business and regular life. It's very hard to do as a sole proprietor or entrepreneur, but it's so vital because you find that if you allow those times to bleed together, it can be very, very taxing, and OpenPhone wants to help you with that. And beyond that, in your off hours, there's an AI agent who can handle your calls, answer common questions, and capture leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Twins listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Locked On Twins has returned for August 13th, a Wednesday afternoon, 2025, Common Era. And the Minnesota Twins are no longer for sale, they announced. So right after the roster purge, the 10 traded players, including Carlos Correa at the trade deadline. So that's kind of the one of the 1-2 punch that fans have received. Now there's this. I've seen some people, trying to be optimistic about what it means. It's not necessarily a doom and gloom, no matter what the news is. I think most people are kind of more like Brandon, who feel that it's hard to see anything positive coming from this. I do want to give credit or make a reference to Sportico for having some information that I didn't see in any of the other local things that I read so far. The new limited partnership groups, Sportico writes, composed of individuals the team did not identify, include a handful of locals from the Twin Cities area and an East Coast family not currently invested in major sports, according to multiple people familiar with the details. They'll form the backbone of a new corporate board, yes, to assist the Pohlads on both strategy and decision-making. The deal does not include a future path to control for either group, the sources said. So we kind of talked about that. This part's interesting, though. The Twins are worth $1.7 billion, according to Sportico's MLB valuations. These LP deals carry a higher implied valuation, according to one of the sources, who is granted anonymity because the details are private. The funds from the raising of capital will go toward paying down the team debt, the sources said, which is approximately $400 million. So this makes it sound like they're getting a better financial deal, or at least a palatable one, from doing it this way rather than selling the team. They get, whatever shares these are. We don't know exactly what the people have paid or like how much of the team they own, but it's with the understanding that the valuation is higher than the 1.7 billion that the team is valued at, according to at least Sportico's MLB valuation. So, I mean, that putting that in the story is a little self-serving on Sportico's part, but so they got somebody interested in giving them top dollar for part of the team.
and keeping the
this
team
will,
besides. Yeah.
and they get to keep the team. So, I mean, for as much as you want to be all conspiracy minded about it, that makes it sound anyway like it's not a bad deal for the Pohlads. And we sort of speculate about what the Pohlad family really wants. It's a bunch of different people in a family. You're going to have differing opinions. They don't. It's not monolithic. It seems like Joe is interested in continuing to be an owner.
Mm-hmm.
And that is evident by this deal, and it was kind of evident before in things that had been written by Dan Hayes or Phil Miller.
Wasn't there going to be a condition that he was hoping to remain as the something or other?
Like no matter how the sale went down, he was kind of hoping to stay. He's having fun. He's 30 years old or whatever, and he's owning a Major League Baseball team. That's all he's ever known, growing up in that family. So there's that. But what it does tell me is that the people are like, well, the Rays got sold. Why couldn't the Twins get sold? And it's a fair question, but the Rays situation was a little different. Major League Baseball really wanted Stu Sternberg to sell the Rays because he was not having, let's just say, any luck, and it's more than that, with getting a new stadium in the Tampa St. Pete area or anywhere else. They wanted to keep the team. MLB wanted to keep the Rays in that area, but they needed someone else, a different face, to deal with the local politicians as far as how to make that happen. So it was in Major League Baseball's interest, they thought, for the Rays to be sold, and so they were. This, it seems like maybe they were a little more neutral on, but it does at least show me that the Twins aren't weaker than the average team as far as what they're worth, because it appears, from what they tell us, that the Pohlads got top dollar for these shares. So I think that's at least a bit of news, decent news that fans can, I don't want to say be excited about, but it's not like they're insolvent or they're bleeding money anymore necessarily, because these new guys wanted to come in and take a piece of the team. So I don't know what local people mean either. I don't know if that means like some of the stodgy businessmen that maybe people were speculating could buy the team, or does it mean someone like Joe Mauer? Is Joe Mauer helping the Pohlads sell off their debt? I don't know. That would be funny if that's true. I don't know that it is, but he's been speculated as possibly a member of the local people who are interested in owning some of the Twins. So I don't know. Do you have anywhere to take that thought?
I don't know how to reconcile all of that as someone who's disappointed the team and the owners didn't sell. I think it's all going to come down to how this offseason goes. And I wonder too, like, does labor unrest play into it at all for someone being interested and understanding that they may have to take on a debt load with a year that we may not have baseball for a year? We don't know. I mean, that's probably the doomer, the doomsday prepper scenario, but I don't know how to reconcile all this information. And so that's kind of why I'm not being a sniveling, crying, screaming baby about it, but at the same time, just really down about it. Like, just not loving it. And if they go out and reinvest the Correa money, now they may say that first year, oh, that Correa money is already spent on Correa. Whatever. Not that I would like that or agree with it, but at least I'd get it. If they do a whole another year of Ty France and Harrison Bader when he finally backs down from his demands, they already don't deserve much, but they would deserve even less in terms of fan support. And I don't know where you go from here. It's staggering how we've gotten to this point.
You mentioned the labor unrest, and I feel like fans know about this, but if you don't, it's widely speculated and even assumed that there's going to be a lockout after next season. Mm-hmm. So, I can see where not just, even if they pay down the debt, I can see where the Twins and a lot of other teams aren't going to necessarily be interested in extending any kind of contract deals into the future because they're worried about, their war chest or the austerity that they'd have to go through when there's a labor stoppage, a work stoppage. Now, they wouldn't get. It's not like a labor stoppage in 2027. They wouldn't have to pay salaries mostly. I think there's probably be exceptions to that. Maybe there's some players who have deals or sweet under the table kind of things, or even like legal deals where they get paid some money anyway. But probably most players aren't going to be like that. But they also aren't going to get. It's not like the TV networks that own those rights. They're not going to get paid for that either, because there's not going to be any programming. So, but I can see where the labor uncertainty and the labor unrest would make it so they would trade Joe, not extend Joe Ryan and get something for him now, and even move Pablo Lopez and go. They can't go entirely young because I would assume Byron Buxton isn't leaving even still. But it's not like Byron Buxton's contract. That's another thing. Byron Buxton signed that deal long ago enough that it isn't an overwhelming amount of money anyway, and isn't something that should prevent them from.
It's fourth starter money.
Yeah. So, that's not even that big of a deal financially. So, the Twins have been in a mode the last two off seasons of not cutting payroll, not adding much. So I see Rocco returning. I see Falvey returning. I see lots of the status quo. I see payroll continuing to be low, even with what's been going on with the new investment people paring down the debt. I don't see a lot of change there, and that's it is disheartening. That was the one thing about the whole process that, if we can just endure these few months or whatever of the sale and get that done, the new owner is going to come in and at least superficially make some investments in terms of personnel and some and then there'll be a payoff for the fans in that respect, but it doesn't look like there's going to be.
No.
So let's take our last break, and then we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the good times right now for the Minnesota Twins.
Well, if you're trying to figure out if you want to go to a ball game, and in fact you do want to go to one, then the place to go is GameTime. And maybe you're downtown already, and at the last minute you know that first pitch is coming up here, you get a group and you don't want to go to a ball game. Well, that's when GameTime steps in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without all the added stress. With the money you save on tickets, by the way, you can redistribute that into food, concessions, merchandise, all that fun stuff, or just bring a few more people with. The more, the merrier. I saw a friend who had a picture of their birthday at the ballpark, and it was a huge group of people. And the Twins didn't win that night, but I have to believe that was still fun. And GameTime makes things like that possible because they make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got great last-minute deals, clear seat views. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is to me. And a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. GameTime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming game, like when the Twins return to face the Tigers. If you want to get in there and make your voice heard, do it as cheaply as possible by going to GameTime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the GameTime app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Locked On Twins returns for our final segment. Before we talk a little bit more about the Twins no sale, we want to make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Twins, because that way you don't miss any of the great Twins content that we've got for you. That includes the Twins postcast with Luke Inman, which comes live after the final out of every game. So the Twins today are going to play the Yankees, possibly salvaging a game in the series with Joe Ryan on the hill.
Let's hope.
Who knows? But anyway, that way, if you subscribe to Locked On Twins, you get 2 shows for the price of 1, and it's all free. So if you want to hear Luke Inman talk about with Theo or whoever, he's got different partners, but talk about the game. He does a postcast every night after every Twins game or every afternoon. So that's what you want to be subscribed. Then you make sure you see all of that stuff. So last few minutes of this, the Twins not being sold, the Pohlad's changing course. It certainly looks like, looking just kind of peeling the onion a little bit, that Carlos Correa, that this is, probably the impetus for Carlos Correa saying, hey, if you can trade me to the Astros, that'd be great. If this is how it's going to be, you buy into that the lack of a sale and the pivot to the investors, and also in the context of the labor issues and all that, is why we had that big Correa-led trade massacre a few days ago at the deadline.
I don't really think so, because I think he knew what he was signing up for with the Pohlads in the first place. And just, of course, to say this is not going to change, more along the lines of, like, if the debt that's being incurred was going to come out of the team, which I think we all kind of assumed along the way, if that became more and more evident or more and more clear, I guess it's possible. But I also think, too, didn't Joe try to kind of fade the heat by saying this was a Falvey and Zoll decision more than anything else? And to be clear, if you thought your job was safe, especially if you're Derek Falvey, and you thought, all right, well, what I built here isn't working, I want to rework this in my image, in my, like, how I see this working, a teardown like that then does make sense. They've never prioritized bullpen as far as resources. Now, they've spent a lot of time and care cultivating a bullpen, but they're not spending a lot of money. They're not the group that traded Wilson Ramos for Matt Capps. That was never going to happen with this bunch. They believe they can put up, I think they believe they can put a bullpen together again for next year that should be solid. Not as good as this one was, but solid. And if that's the case, there's really no reason to believe they can't have a decent club next year. So that's kind of the demon on one shoulder and the saint on the other. Is there is enough talent on this team. The way this team is built right now reminds me of, like, obviously not apples to apples, but like a Royals or Tigers, where you got enough pitching and you got enough scrappy hitting to get you where you're going. I mean, the Royals, when they made the playoffs, didn't have any crazy huge superstars outside of Bobby Witt Jr., right? Like, they had some solid players who all did their jobs. I think the Twins are maybe going to go that route. I mean, hopefully Walker Jenkins turns into something, and they've got so much prospect, like a glut of prospects that they think can help. And the number 2 farm system, as Pipeline said yesterday with their updated rankings. So I do think if you keep your 2 big starters, you come back with Buxton, and Lewis maybe finds it, you get a few prospects coming up, you add another solid player in free agency, then maybe this was more of a retool than a rebuild. I don't think of it as a rebuild yet, but if you trade one or the other, or of course both, of Joe Ryan and Pablo, then it's really hard to see it as anything other than admitting that last group was a failure and starting over, which doesn't make sense to me, because I think Falvey's job is safe. I don't think it's that safe.
And Rocco's been extended. His contract's been extended next year, so he's owed money. I can't imagine that.
He might do the lame duck thing, but I can't see him going into being fired this offseason.
Right. And I also think, if one of Lopez or Joe Ryan go, it would make sense for the other to go as well.
Yes.
But, I don't even know, as Joe Ryan, worked so many innings that it wouldn't make sense to maybe give him a 4-year extension at whatever the going rate is? And is that so much to worry about?
But does that appeal to him too?
Does that appeal to him? It might not.
You might. I mean, you'd have to give him at 4 years, probably $100 million, right? Like,
yes.
Because I mean, there's years of control that'll be a little on the lower side, but market value for a guy like him is 28 to 30, right?
Right.
I think your 4-year deal would have to be $100 million. Now, 4 years would appeal to the Twins, who balked at giving Jose Barrios as long as he wanted. And maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong. He's been okay with the Blue Jays. But if 4 years is the sweet spot, I really have no issue with it. It would be a sign of good faith. I just don't know that I see it happening.
They could use a sign of good faith for the fans, though, because they have to know how people, no matter what they, if they're just trying to convince themselves that this is going to be that this is going to work, that's one thing. But they know that the fans aren't buying it right now for the most part.
It's not going to happen. But what about a Jeffers extension? That'd be another one.
Yeah, it depends on how long you think the prospects that they. I don't. That's not going to be
probably 3 years away.
Yes, so it would be like a 3-year extension.
Yeah,
maybe a 3 or 4 year extension. So
I'd do that.
But yeah, the fans could use some signs that the team is interested in competing now.
For real.
And I don't know if $100 million to Joe Ryan is A, going to get a deal done, B, all that's smart to do, C, something that would make everybody feel better. But I think it would be worth looking into. Although, right now, the way things are going, I can't imagine that the players who are left are necessarily that excited about staying. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an S show right now for the Twins,
to say the least.
This show is over. We want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all new Locked On MLB Game Night. MLB Game Night, which brings you every game, every night, all season long. And it's been a long season. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, such as this one. For my friend Brandon Warne, this is Dave Brown. Wishing you all a very pleasant good evening, saying we will Alexei Casilla tomorrow night.